And now it's time to talk hot dogs. Hot dogs with Larry Bain. Specifically, listeners, if you want to check it out, www.letsbefrankdog.com. Larry, why the hot dog? What's going on here?
The hot dog is such an incredible icon. I had the great honor of hearing George Lakoff speak several times and read his book, and he sort of really fostered so much discussion about how to frame something and how effective the Republicans had been at framing certain discussions.
Yeah.
And, you know, here I am trying to talk about good food, which I think is a very simple concept, but I start using words like sustainable and systemic disorders, and nobody wants to hear words like
eyes
that.
just
They're
glaze
not,
over.
yeah, it's not fun. And so I was looking for a symbol. I was looking for a message delivery system that was succinct, and the hot dog, to me, really was at one point a symbol of everything great about the American food system. It was an incredibly sustainable food product. You would have, you know, a farmer take his cow or his hog to slaughter, and there would be the primal cuts that he would sell off and keep going, you know, pay the mortgage with, and then he would take some of the offcuts for himself, and then there would be trim, which you couldn't just simply throw on a grill and eat. It would be too tough and the flavor wasn't quite right, but it was still good protein. And so you could grind it up and add some spices and be a chef and create something very delicious and very affordable.
It's quintessentially American, I would say.
It is. And then the Industrial Food Revolution came along, and the farms got industrialized, and probably the greatest victim was the hot dog.
With mystery meats in it.
Exactly. So suddenly it was no longer this good trim, but it was parts that had been inaccessible before, because now you had machines that could scrape and spray and gouge and grind and come up with bits and then pulverize other bits, and then you could find almost anything, if you put it into the machine and added the right chemicals, could come out looking kind of sort of like food and tasting kind of sort of like food and not really being food. And so the hot dog had gone from being this icon for great American food production to the worst of the worst, where parents wouldn't feed their children hot dogs, and justifiably so. The nitrates aside from the mystery meat involved. And so I thought, this is the way to not only sum up all of my thoughts, but put them in a bun. And sort of the haiku of all of my food philosophy, and to offer up something that was also very accessible to people who might fear organic, thinking, oh, okay, it's not going to taste very good, or it's going to be sprouted mush, or it's going, you know, I'm going to have to wear Birkenstocks while eating it. Well, this is a hot dog, and it's recognizable, and it has this flavor that's cannot be denied. And it is not only child-friendly, but it turns us all into children.
That's true.
And it reintroduces something that has fallen out of this good food discussion, which is fun. You know, people will talk about nutrition and health and healing and environmental issues, and all of that's important, but where's the fun? And without fun, you know, I'm not interested. I'm a fun guy. And so we started this because, again, we wanted to promote good food. We wanted to promote pasture-based livestock. So all of our hot dogs, we have 3 hot dogs right now. We have our traditional Frank dog, which is 100% beef, and that beef is 100% pasture finished. No grain, never. It doesn't go to feedlots. The cattle live on these pristine pastures down in San Luis Obispo. No hormones or antibiotics go into the cattle. And then when we make our hot dogs at a very traditional family-run factory up in Fairfield, no nitrites, no nitrates. And so these are truly dogs gone good. They're good for the farmer, they're good for the planet, they're delicious. And when you see a kid eating one of these hot dogs, they're getting pretty much the same amount of omega-3 fatty acid in their hot dog as they would get in a teaspoon of cod liver oil. And I dare say the kids tend to prefer the hot dog over the cod liver oil.
Well, I think the adults prefer it too. Sign me up, I'll pass on the cod liver oil. One thing I found interesting as we start to wrap things up, I noticed you had mentioned on your website that Let's Be Franks, you're going beyond organic. Tell our listeners about that.
Well, the organic standards, the USDA organic standards, are incredibly admirable and need to be viewed as the foundation to build a healthier food system upon. But there are a lot of things that organic standards don't address, like animal welfare. There's nothing about animal welfare in the organic standards. So you can have an organic confinement cattle facility. You can have organic milk that comes from this facility where cattle are crowded in unbearable conditions.
Wow.
It also doesn't address human welfare. So you can have an organic food system where the farm laborers aren't paid a decent wage, where they don't have access to health care, they don't have access sometimes to bathroom facilities. So our business really looks at all aspects of how the food gets from the ground to the bun. And we ensure that it is good for, again, there's a huge problem. We're losing our ranchers, we're losing our cattle ranchers and our hog farmers, because with the consolidation of meat production, there's no longer slaughter facilities that are local, and everybody is having to deal with this giant machine. And so we're trying to reach ranchers that are really facing the dilemma of either getting big or getting out, and showing them an alternative, that they can still be good ranchers, and because our hot dogs are more delicious, people will pay a few pennies more for them, and then we can pay the rancher a few pennies more for trim. Now, any rancher can sell a grass-fed prime rib for an enormous amount of money to Acme Chop House, who in turn sells it for an enormous amount of money to you.
Exactly.
But we can actually give that rancher a lot of money for his trim that nobody else is willing to pay for. And there's a lot of trim on every cow, a lot more than there is prime rib. So we hope to not only provide delicious, healthy food for our consumers, but a financially viable future for the few remaining ranchers in California.
That is truly impressive. Again, check them out, www.letsbefrankdog.com.
I have to correct you, dogs.
Letsbefrankdogs.com. Got me there.
Well, I'll buy that domain too.
There we go. 30 seconds or less. What's next for the restaurant industry?
I think there are no choices but to have more focus on regional food that's grown in a way that's good for the planet, good for the people producing the food, ultimately good for the customer. I think customers are appreciating the effort that goes in and consequently the cost. But again, with the hot dog cart, we show that you can have great food at a very affordable price. I think there's going to be more innovation around cooking simple, fun food that from really good ingredients. So, good fast food. Alice Waters referred to our hot dog as the ultimate fast, slow food.
There we go.
And I think there's going to be a lot more of that.
Final question for you, Larry. What really matters?
I think appreciating the importance of our connection to nature as urban dwellers, and so many of us are, and so many more will be in the future, we're becoming increasingly separated from nature, which I think takes a tremendous toll, not on our physical well-being, but on our spiritual well-being as well. So I think we always have to remember that without a healthy rural world, there can't be a healthy world. And food, for me, is what connects us closely to nature and makes us realize with every bite we take the role that we have in maintaining and sustaining the planet.
Appreciate the time, Larry. Listeners, that's Larry Bain, chef, entrepreneur, and true visionary in the restaurant industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much.